What's up, everyone? This is Mike Cazayoux, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week, I'm on the show with one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the country, Kurt Hester. Kurt is an absolute maniac in the best way. He's one of the most passionate coaches in the game. He brings an energy that's really unparalleled in the collegiate scene, and he's a phenomenal speed expert. We talk about leadership, culture, investing in athletes in terms of their long-term success rather than just on the field. Whether you're a coach just wanting to get better technically or someone that wants to learn how to build a strong culture at within your organization, this guy is one of the best I've ever talked to, and you're going to gain so much wisdom from this show. Before we get started, if you haven't done so already and you're a regular listener of this show, please head to iTunes real quick, leave me a quick review. That would help out a lot. Y'all enjoy the show. If you have a question that you want answered related to health and fitness, mindset, business, etc., please don't hesitate to call in. I absolutely love being able to connect with you guys and answer your questions, or having friends of mine that are experts help me answer your questions. So if you're interested, call into the hotline at 801-449-0503. That's 801-449-0503. Our Brute Body program is about to reopen for registration on March 20th, and the actual program will begin 1 week after the open ends. This is perfect timing because this program is the fastest way to build muscle, get leaner, and generally just hit huge PRs in all of your strength lifts. With this launch, it's our 1 year anniversary, and we're releasing a ton of new content on goal setting, a ton of education on nutrition, training, and mindset, and we're even bringing in a transformation challenge with the top prize being a cruise for two. If you have any questions at all about the program, email us at info@brutestrengthtraining.com. Or you can go to brutestrengthtraining.com/programs/brute-body to sign up for the wait list. That's brutestrengthtraining.com/programs/brute-body. What's up, everyone? This is Mike Cazayoux. You're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. I'm talking with the head of strength and conditioning at La Tech, Louisiana Tech, one of the top strength and conditioning coaches in the nation of the last couple decades, Kurt Hester. Kurt, as I was telling you a second ago, I know from firsthand experience how demanding the job of a strength and conditioning coach is at the collegiate level, and I know how much you value your time. So I really appreciate you making some time to do this interview with me, man.
No problem, brother. I'm glad y'all called me up to be here, man.
Hell yeah, man. So let's start out. I know you've been all over the place and worked with, so many different types of people. Can you give a brief, maybe coaching history for people just to let them know where you've been?
Kind of started out, at Tulane, where I got my undergrad in physiology there, training athletes with Tom Shaw, who's a pretty well-known performance coach in Florida now. And he was with the Saints. He was with the Patriots as their speed coach. Then I went to LSU in the 90s and they hired me as like the speed guy and for football. And then I trained a couple of national championship teams with Coach Burtman there. Then went and opened my own facility on the North Shore of New Orleans, where I trained, probably I think over 12,000 athletes there in that one facility from junior high all the way through the pros. And then after Katrina, went in with partners with some of the guys I had trained for the draft from the University of Tennessee, and helped them open up D1 sports training, and stayed there in Nashville, was our corporate office. And, I was the director of sports performance, plus trained all our pro athletes. And then I was in Denver, opening up a facility there and working with some of the Broncos, and Coach Burtman. Coach Holtz called me up and asked me if I was interested in coming back to the college level after about 20 years of being gone. And I really was. My kids were older, and it was time for me to come back to this level.
Settle down. And are you from Louisiana originally?
I'm from below Houma, a little town called Chauvin, Louisiana.
Awesome, man. What So this interview is actually really special to me, and I purposely didn't tell you this weeks ago when we planned this, but before I even started my first job in strength and conditioning and at Southern Utah University, I sent out an email to about 50 different strength coaches. And it was something, it was a short email, and I said what my qualifications were, and I was basically just asking for advice, like what kind of resources should I look into? Should I get a master's degree? A couple different questions, and I probably got 2 responses total. One was from the head guy at App State. I forget his name. I'm not sure. I don't think he's there anymore. And the other one was you. And I knew Matt Bruce at the time. And he might have even been one that I don't know how it happened. I think you responded and I told him about it, and he told me, all of your qualifications and who you had worked with. And I was so blown away that someone at your level took the time to respond to an email when I know how many emails you guys are getting about, interns and different people trying to do, send product and all this kind of shit. So why did you take the time to, I'm sure you don't remember that, but why would you take the time to respond to someone like me? And is that something that you still do today?
Oh, I mean, I was on the phone with a young coach from Midland State, Midland University. It's a little NAIA school in Nebraska yesterday. He emailed me and I said, look, man, I mean, I get off around 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I don't sleep a whole lot, so just call me late at night, man. I talked to him for about an hour. Wrestling strength coach from Penn State's a young guy. He called me, he emailed me, and I called him right back. I mean, I was wild, man. Coming out, I was probably one of the wildest guys that was, under Coach Hatch. He let me get away with more stuff than anybody. I had really long hair, and I'd wear my hat backwards and Matt was young, man. Matt was probably 13 or 14 at the time, and they would look at me, but why does Kurt get away with having really long hair and he's got a hat on backwards, and Coach Hatch never tells him anything. And I had guys like Coach Hatch and Tom Shaw were like, this dude's kind of wild, he's kind of crazy, but they kind of saw something in me as a coach, and I owe my whole career to those guys. So anytime a coach calls me, I'm the first one to call them back and talk to them. And most of the time it's kind of like you did. They ask for, how did you get to where you are in the field? And realistically, I was in the right place at the right time my entire career, and it just, I was just blessed to be standing next to some really great coaches all the time. I mean, from the time I started training at 12 to now I'm 53 years old, and it's still happening to me.
Right. Well, and I think any successful person, that's a huge portion of their success, but there's absolutely something to be said about your persistence, right? Like you've just shown up day in and day out for years and years and years. And that's why today they call you one of the best in the country. Well, I mean, it wouldn't have happened in 5 years, first job you got, that wouldn't have happened.
No. And even when I was at Tulane as a GA, I would get up in the morning. I was living on the North Shore, and I would drive to Tulane, go to class, work with the Tulane athletes all day, then drive from New Orleans to Baton Rouge Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, work with Coach Hatch. I'd get to Baton Rouge probably 7, 8 o'clock at night, and work with Coach Hatch would stay with me till almost 10. Then I'd drive from Baton Rouge back to the North Shore. And I did that forever, because I knew, I did that. I drove to Florida with Dan Path, one of the best track coaches in the world. He's our national sprints coach. He's with Altus now in Arizona, and slept in my truck and worked with him, tried to learn as much as I could from him. And then he finally goes, where you're staying? I said, I'm living in my truck, man. And he let me sleep in the track office. And
wow.
I stayed a few weeks with him. And I just did that my entire career instead of, now, I mean, that's before the computer age. So, you can go on Skype people and talk to them, pull up stuff on the internet. And I just drove. I drove to California, Canada. It didn't matter. I was saving my money and I was going to learn from the best in the country.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's more likely too that you can get face to face with someone if you drive out to them than ask them to spend an hour on Skype with them, you know?
I've never been turned down. I would call, and I wouldn't even know these guys. I mean, Dan, he was at LSU before I was at LSU, and he had moved on to Texas and then Florida. And he's like, yeah, man, come on up. Stay as long as you want. If I wanted to stay for 6 months, he'd let me stay for 6 months.
Man, that's such a great lesson because there's no better way to learn than to immerse yourself with one of these experts, right? There's no like you could read 10 books and not have the same experience you probably had in a week spending time with those kinds of guys.
I mean, especially when you're mechanics, you're looking at sprint mechanics, and most coaches can fix gross technical errors with like a football player or a basketball player or a baseball player. But when I think we had like 36 medalists coming off, I think it was either the Greek or Beijing games at the time, 36 medalists on the track, and you're watching a 200-meter sprinter, running, at 90%. And to me, it was like the most fluid, beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And he's sitting there picking them apart, stride for stride. And I was like, Dan, he goes, look, Kurt, just put your head behind my shoulder and watch what I'm watching and then listen to what I'm saying. And after about 10 days, I could start picking up some really fine and fine-tuned sprint mechanics. But, I mean, these guys are at a whole different level.
So I didn't want to get into speed quite yet, but since we're already talking about it, most of my audience is probably doesn't know a whole lot about speed development. So can you give people like a very high level idea of like maybe the key characteristics that people need to know when trying to get faster or coaching people to get faster? And then we can kind of, go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, it's relative. I mean, it's simple and it's not simple. I mean, American athletes, especially with football, when you're dealing with football players, and especially high school guys who come out like big programs, like in Louisiana would be West Monroe, John Curtis, and these big Texas schools and all. And everything they do typically is conditioning. It's just that and football players' mentality is if I'm not on the ground completely exhausted at the end of the workout, I didn't do anything today. I didn't get better. And it's completely opposite with speed work. Mm-hmm. And I mean, less is more. And, if Charlie Francis, if you come out and you PR in 100 meters, rep 1, you're done for the day.
Wow.
I mean, because your central nervous system is locking that in. And he goes, okay, we're done. So in our speed work, it's basically you have 72 hours between sessions. It's 100% effort with 100% rest intervals, and it's very slow. And athletes, they don't get it. They're like, well, I'm not tired. And the whole thing, but when you're finished with a speed training session, is you don't want to be tired. You don't want to be in a fatigue state at all. Mm-hmm. And we probably spend more of our time getting warmed up and then potentiating. Getting our muscles to move faster before we even start the speed workout, and then it's just really quality reps with 100% effort with 100% rest. So basically, about every 10 yards you run, it's a 1 minute rest, and so there's a lot of time where you're doing some active dynamic work in between reps. If you're going if it's a 4 minute break, if you're running 40s. Mm-hmm. And just so you stay a little bit loose, but then you're not taxing the central nervous system either. So right. in a typical session, you might run 4 to 6 reps, and then you're done.
Right. And
you've gotten faster. And typically, athletes and coaches, they'll look at it and go, "Oh, that's not enough," and it's beyond enough. And that's one thing at our level we have to make our athletes faster because we're a non-Power 5 school playing. We play 2 SEC games this year, and we're not getting these 5-star genetic beasts that the SEC gets. So we have to train at a different level for us, and we compete. I mean, we took Arkansas 21-20 first game of the season, and we missed 2 field goals, and we ran circles around the whole game.
Yep.
So.
You mentioned potentiation. Are you talking about doing post-activation potentiation in your speed workouts or something else?
Yeah, just some really quick, short duration plyos to
Okay.
just to fire it up. Just to fire it up before we start, so that we're moving fast. Rep one.
Got it. What are the best resources online and books, maybe clinics or seminars that people can look into that want to learn more about speed development?
I mean, one of the best books I read it last week was James Smith at Applied Sprinting. It's pretty new. I think it just came out this year. It's on Amazon. It is by far one of the best sprint books that I've ever read. And there's Franz Bosch's new book is pretty good. But James Smith does a really good job of breaking down sprint training and sprint mechanics. And he does it because he's trained a lot of Australian rules football players and some CFL guys and a few NFL guys. So it's not just from a track perspective, it's from a team sports perspective too. So it's really, really good.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, it's much different training a group of 6 track athletes than 60 football players in one session, right?
And that's why I love his perspective, because it's not. I've read a lot, of like Charlie Francis' stuff, but it's all directed towards track and field athletes.
Yep.
This one it's across a spectrum, so it's really, really, really good book.
That's cool. Are there any other big mistakes common mistakes you see people making other than they turn it into a conditioning session?
I think effort. I think, it's it's not even really the mistake of the coach, it's the mistake of the athlete. Mm-hmm. They're so used to conditioning and saving themselves, like saving the rep because I don't know how many reps I'm going to do. And, it's basically going in with intent. And the athlete has to understand there's intent in every plyometric drill and every sprint drill and every mechanic drill that you do. And it's basically communicating. It's under communicating to the athlete
right
what we're trying to accomplish that day. And we start off every session, we break it down and we go through every rep with our athletes so they understand the intent of the workout. And so we have pretty good buy-in, and they understand the importance, and they understand the fact that if they don't go 100%, they're not getting any better that day.
I love that. Matt Bruce told me to ask you about, I think when you were running your private facility in New Orleans, y'all would take yearly pictures. He told me to ask you about the yearly pictures.
We call it Thugs of Steel. And it's, I kind of got it when I was consulting schools. I'd go up to University of Tennessee every year, and Phil Fulmer was the coach, and he'd hire me to go up there and consult their strength staff. And they did Boys of Summer. It was like a big, huge poster that the athletes that trained the hardest throughout the summer, they got to be on this huge calendar. It ended up being a calendar for the school, but they had a huge poster in the weight room. So we started doing it, and we call it Thugs of Steel because our weight room was just 21 platforms. It was pretty archaic, and we called our weight room the ghetto. And so we called the picture the Thugs of Steel. So the best athletes that trained the hardest throughout the summer, they were the only ones that got on the picture. And we, South Louisiana, we'd go out in the swamp and take these crazy pictures of guys painted up with ARs and M16s, and you got a lot of guys like to hunt, and they're like little mini anarchists with their weapons. So some pretty cool pictures, and we did some stuff with the sheriff's department where we had dogs, and they brought us into the jail, into the jail, and we did all these pictures and prison pictures, and
nice.
We did some stuff with the DAA with pictures. And it was pretty great. It was, it just motivated them to train harder to make that picture.
To get that designation, right? It's like the Hatch leaderboard.
Like the Hatch leaderboard and getting a Hatch t-shirt.
Yep. Shit, man. There are a lot of Hatch t-shirts out there, but only a handful of leader shirts.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you've coached at the highest level as a strength coach, and you've prepared hundreds of NFL players, coached hundreds of professional athletes. What do you think it is that separates you as a coach and makes you one of a kind?
I think most coaches feel like the athletes are there because of them, and I'm the opposite. I'm here because of the athlete, and for like at this level, it means more to me that they graduate and they're successful in life than anything else. Because the worst thing, I think for me, the worst thing to see is as an athlete 10 years down the road and he's not successful. He's not successful and he's not doing good in life.
Right.
I think that hurts me more than anything. So I think because I care about my athletes from a human level and not just what can they do for me athletically. I think I've done enough with Heisman Trophy winners and Hall of Famers and Super Bowl MVPs training these guys. When I was younger, that seemed like that was like really cool, and that's what I was aspiring to be. But then the older I got, it was a struggle for me to get through Tulane. And I understand that the struggles to get your degree, playing the game and with all the hours, all the work you have to put in. So it really has nothing to do with training or my knowledge. It has more of the fact that I put a lot into these athletes as a person.
Right. Are there any, so you talked about younger, being more concerned with, the caliber of athlete you were training and kind of maybe some of the glory that goes along with that. What was it, if you can pinpoint it, that kind of created that shift where now you're focused more on their long-term success? If you can pinpoint it.
No, I could, because it was every year I would get these athletes from all over the country, from different USC and Nebraska and Illinois and Miami, and just I get 35 guys a year, and probably 95% of them I would always ask them about who recruited you and why did you pick that school, and then what is your long-term, what's your plan B? What's your long-term plan in life? Because football, if you're lucky, it's 3 years. If you're a DB or a corner, if you're a DB or a receiver, it's probably 1 year. You have a 1 year career, and very few that have a 6 to 10 year career. And 95% of them said there is no plan. It's football or nothing. And I always thought that was insane, that they had no concept of the afterlife of football. And that's, and I think that's was that turning point where it's okay. I make a better person. I help them understand that the day you start in college, it's not just about getting your degree. It's about figuring out what you want to do with your life, because football is only going to be, it's a layover. If you're flying across the country, it's a layover in Denver for a couple of years, and you still got to fly to California. You still got the rest of your life. So I think that was the fact that none of them, and I did it for 20 years training these guys, and none of them, that said 95% had no idea what they would do after football.
Right. And I love that approach and perspective. I'm wondering, how do you, there's this idea that to be a master at something or to be truly excellent at something, people even throw out the phrase, like, you can't have a plan B, right? And you don't want people to have, say, like a 1 foot out the door. How do you marry, people, these kids are really striving for excellence, and they're trying to be the best in the world at something, but also, you want them to develop skills in other areas, or just how do you marry those two? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's the fact that, if even in our field, if you're just consumed, like I'm an incessant reader, I probably read 4 to 5 books a month, and I'm always on watching YouTube videos and, listening to different coaches around the country on podcasts. But if you don't get away from it, you'll go insane. I'm a big hunter, fisherman. So, for me to go just sit in a deer stand, even if I don't see anything, just not to speak to another human and just
Right.
be there for a couple of hours to maintain sanity. And you have to have other things in your life. It can't just be directed towards, your sport or your vocation. I don't think you're ever going to get truly successful. I think, yes, you want to be determined, and yes, you want to have that tunnel vision. And, I'm incessant. I think about training, realistically 24/7, and it just those, but when you do it for 6 months straight, you get really close to burnout. And,
right.
It's the same thing when you're an athlete and you're training, you utilize, developing yourself in another career just to get away from football and training. And that's probably what's going to save you and make you get back to football and training at a higher level, because you're not so consumed and obsessed with it and burn out with it.
I couldn't agree more. It allows you to have this nice like ebb and flow, right? You can't be on 24/7, 365. You have to have some other buckets that you can pull from. And, one of the worst things is if you have no other buckets and you have a bad training day or you have a bad game and you have no other area of life that you can, find fulfillment in and get confidence from, then, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah,
you have these other outlets, ththese other interests, whether it be relationships or hobbies or whatever, can be a very good thing for your most important thing, right?
Yeah, it keeps you fresher. It keeps you, mentally fresher to be able to accomplish more in your vocation, and that's all it does. And the thing is, when you step away from it, you're more ready to come back. You're more accomplished that way than just completely burning yourself out. And I'm the worst. Coach Holtz always gets on me. He's like, "You got to get out of here. You've got to go do something else. You can't," because I do get consumed with our players' lives and helping them. And he goes, "Man, some days you just got to step away." And like sometimes I won't even go. He's like, "I want you to go on vacation," because there's like right now we're in the middle of pro day training, getting ready for the draft, and we're off of school, but then I have all these seniors that are trying to get ready for the draft. And so I'm going to get away for 4 days, during Mardi Gras, and then I'll come back and, early from I still have like probably 7 more days of vacation time just to come back and train these guys, because I committed when we were recruiting them, if you come here, I'll train you for the draft so that you can make sure you graduate so you don't leave and go somewhere else, drop out of school, and then something happens in your career, your NFL career doesn't take hold, and then you don't have your degree. So, and I'm probably one of the worst when it comes to that of having too much tunnel vision.
Right. How do you think your players would describe your coaching style?
Oh man, because lucky there's no mic or no, because I'd say some crazy. I say some outlandish stuff just to make they laugh, just to make them laugh and because I like to have fun. I think strength coaches think they have to be an asshole 24/7, and their job is to be just this tyrant asshole yelling at people 24/7. Our athletes do anything I ask them to do because one, they know I care about them. 2, they know I'm incessant about doing, having the perfect program, which doesn't exist, but I'm constantly trying to write it, and that I want what's best for them. And so I want it live, man. I'm just, it's up tempo as soon as they walk in the door. And I want them to enjoy and have a good time, because if you're having fun, you're going to put more effort into it. And, and some of our training is not fun. When you're trying to get conditioned for an 80-play game against a high octane offense, and you're conditioning, if you're a skilled athlete, you're running, 80 plays at 60 yards. And we do it in about 45 minutes, whereas a game is 2 hours, and we're doing 80 plays of 60 yards and broken down into 4 quarters with a 25-second rest interval. It tends not to be fun. So we try to do as much, possible to, guys, we'll do Halloween. We dress up in stupid costumes and train and come in at 6 a.m. and just go balls out, work out. We have this thing called a dog fight in the middle of summer where we have all these insane strongman competitions.
Is that where your coaches compete against each other as well?
No, what we do is we pick teams. We draft 8 teams, and a coach has a team. And the coaches, we bet. We throw down a whole bunch of money on whose team is going to win. And And then Coach Holtz, like the winning team goes to his house, has a big barbecue and stuff. But
oh, that's awesome.
It's a pretty, it's intense because, it's we get shirts made up. They paint themselves up, like warriors and go out there. And we have,
that's badass.
Big yoke racks and huge farmer's walk bars. And we come up with these crazy events. And there's a point system. And so they compete, and we do it all night. We do it like we start about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We finish about 1 a.m.
Wow.
And they love it. It's like to them, it's the greatest day, ever. And then we just do stuff. Then we do a lot of stuff, outside of football with the athletes. I'm with them. We do like bonfires and stuff at the pools and, diving contests at the rec center. And just spend a lot of time, wiffle ball, basketball, it doesn't matter. We spend a lot of time away from football because it's the only way you really get to know these guys.
Man, that is badass. I love that. When you first got to La Tech, I'm guessing they didn't have all of these traditions in place, right?
No, it was. The weight room was. God, it wasn't even a good single A Texas high school weight room. It was
right.
Beyond horrible. No equipment had been bought like in over 20 years. I brought in about $35,000 worth of my own equipment. It's mostly like speed equipment now because we didn't even have enough room for me to bring any other kind of equipment into the weight room. And it was just like a basic program. Because I like to have fun, I started, everything was more militaristic where
right.
lines and by a whistle. And I came in cranking the music up. I'd throw 45-pound plates over their head at them, and they're like, just threw a 45-pound plate at me. And they, what the hell? They didn't know. And I'd jump up on a box and just grab a box, throw it through the wall. And they're just, and then they would just later go, oh, this is great. We got music,
right.
Things are, I want to be aggressive. I want to be smart. We do technically coach. And some days we don't even put music on because, we're doing snatches, cleans, pulls, and every variation of jerks and all. You got to hear a coach. You have technical cues. But then on other days when it's we're doing high volume work, trying to get our athletes bigger, we'll just crank it up and it's up tempo and I'm very and I want my coaches to be very hands on. Like we're very physical, like grabbing and touching guys and just hitting them and pushing them and they love it. It's not it's kind of shows that you care about them if
absolutely
with every athlete. And so we do a lot of stuff to keep it up, the tempo up and the vibe up, really up. So so when they walk in, man, we don't have a problem typically, except with a few freshmen, with body language. They come in smiling, happy, ready to go every day.
That is awesome, man. And all of this stuff, as you've already started to say, it increases the buy-in, right? Which is maybe the most important part of a strength and conditioning program, getting the people to buy in and adhere to what you're telling them to do. And I bet your kids are much more likely to do what you tell them to do, at their house, whether it be some mobility or some breath, some breathing or whatever it may be, because of their experience in the weight room with you.
I mean, a lot of too. I want to give credit to my staff and myself for that kind of culture, but we're in Ruston, Louisiana. There is nothing to do here. So
right.
Our guys live up here 24/7. And so we have a lot of menus that we have on the wall, every mobility type issue, every strength issue. And so we got guys that will come in and do, some work before the workout, and then they'll stay and do work after the workout.
Mm-hmm.
So, instead of having to program all this stuff into a workout, we just write a menu on the wall and put it on the wall and teach them that. And then they take care of those issues on themselves so that we can get to training instead of spending all this time on soft tissue work and mobility work. They pretty much the entire team comes in and does it before before any lift or any speed or conditioning workout, and then they'll stay after and do it. So
right.
That buy-in because they love to be here, they love to be around us. I mean, I typically go to a coffee shop to work because if I stay in my office, there's always athletes sitting in my office. They just want to hang out and talk.
Right.
Which is a good thing. It means
that's a great thing, man. That is a great thing. And you get to spend more time with these kids than any other coach because of the way the NCAA works. And, you know, the fact that you're getting them to stay after hours, you're making a huge impact on them. That's awesome.
Well, I think too, is like when I was coming through, it was like, you know, you had all these guys like at Penn State and Michigan State and Michigan, like basically the Big Ten. They were all these, you know, high intensity guys. You know, it was just machines, and you kind of did a rotation around in the machines with a ton of weight. And then down south, you know, we were, you know, you had a lot of power lifters, and then you had all these guys that were like, you know, hatch guys that were doing Olympic lifting. It was just like this war between the power lifters, Olympic lifters, the high intensity guys on who was the best and whose training program was the most conducive for building athletes. And I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was like where, I mean, you kind of hated those guys and they hated you. And it was, you know, when you went to conferences, it was, you know, it was almost like you were going to fight them or something. It's kind of funny. You know, when I look back at, you know, the 80s and the 90s, how, you know, how it was and how, you know, just idiotic it was. But, you know, everybody trains hard. Everybody has, you know, pretty good programming. But I think what gets lost in it is a physical culture. You know, just that culture of building a team means more than the programming right now, because they're young. Look, man, you can take a 17, 18, 19-year-old athlete. They're going to adapt and to almost anything you throw.
Right.
You know, but to put a standard of excellence and to have a success-driven culture, that's a challenge, and that's harder to do because it's kind of like being a parent. You if you get tired of that bar of them, you know, not reaching that bar that you set, if you let them win, you have no culture. And so it's like basically the same way with raising a child. If you don't discipline them and you let them win, and then you're raising an asshole, you know. Right. And that's, you know, just that every day of your, you know, they're young, they're kids, man. They're kids. They're going to do dumb stuff. You can't, I mean, God, all the dumb things I've done, you know, hell, all the way till I was last year, you know, before my 53rd birthday, all the stuff I've done, you know, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do dumb things. You're going to, you know, it's not, they're kids. You can't hold it against, I mean, you typically can't hold it against them to where, you know, I think a lot of coaches do and put a stigma on a kid who's a freshman for doing something stupid that he's a completely different human as a redshirt senior.
Right.
You know, and just building that culture and that it's a trust thing. Is it building that culture and that trust with the athletes, and that's how you develop great teams. I mean, that's why, you know, Saban, Belichick, you know, Popovich. That's why those guys are great at what they do.
Mm-hmm. Are there any tactical things that you do to build this culture? So you're talking about, you know, building trust and, you know, teaching excellence. Is there anything tactical, practical that you consciously think of in these, you know, in relation to that?
Like we start, and we have like one part of the weight room was really long and narrow with a 40-yard strip of turf. And the athletes start like right at the beginning of the workout. The athletes start on one end, and if you're 5 minutes early, no matter what. If you're 4 minutes early, you're 1 minute late. And we teach time management right off the bat. In a job, you're 5 minutes late, you're fired. Mm-hmm. So they're 5 minutes early for every workout. And they start on one side. I'm on the other side of the room, and you know, we have one coach kind of holds them back. You know, almost like you're coming on the field for a game, and we start getting them hyped up, you know, before we even start. And then I just start, you know, I start jumping up and down, hype them up, and then they come flying. They sprint all the way across the weight room to me. Then I give them, you know, basically the orders of the day, you know, what we're doing, what we're going to accomplish. And that point on is man, they got a smile on their face, they're awake. And then we go through our warm-ups and we're, you know, very disciplined and you're going to do everything perfect, or we're going to do it again. You're going to do it perfect, or we're going to do it again. We're not going to get to the workout if you can't get through the warm-up. Mm-hmm. And just, you know, maintaining that structure. And then, you know, kind of, you know, being with Coach Hatch growing up, it's like, you know, you technically you're going to do it perfect, and you're going to keep doing it until you get it right. Mm-hmm. And we don't progress an athlete until he can get it right. And so, you know, just instilling that right off the bat, and I'm all, and at the end of the workout, I don't just talk about, what we did or, where we need to go. I mean, I like, it's Black History Month. So I go through and ask them all these questions about Black history and athletes in history and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and, just a lot of stuff that normal coaches would never even talk about to these athletes. And I give them a history lesson almost every day.
Wow.
Or a cultural lesson of stuff that's going on in the country, like what happened at Baylor, what's happened at like at Oregon with their strength staff, what's happened with coaches getting DUIs and getting fired, what happened at Michigan State a couple of weeks ago. And just, you're a football player doesn't mean you're better than any human on the planet, and that you're not above the law, and you have to understand that. And that it's the complete opposite, that you have to conduct yourself at a higher standard because people are always looking at you and always trying to bring you down. So it's that kind of stuff that it's just natural for me. And then infusing all these different competitions that we do in training, special competitions that we do when we come back and do them at night. Just, I'm just constantly trying to bring different things to break up just basic monotony of training.
Monotony. Yeah, man, that's such a great lesson. I love all of that. And you're obviously making a really powerful impact on these kids. That's so cool. I just wrapped up my second interview with Coach Moffitt last week. We did a live recording at the LSU weight room, and we talked about, the guys that they're getting are Ferraris. They're the best of the best of the best wherever they grew up. And at LSU, a lot of what they do is they just have to make sure that these kids, don't get hurt, they're moving correctly. And it's not, it's not black and white, but that's, their best players. That's how they're treating them. At your school, you have some of those types of kids, but you have a lot of smaller athletes, people that haven't trained as much. How does this change how you program for these athletes? And how do you also marry, wanting to improve people's movement quality, but also needing to put on strength and size?
I think right off the bat, because I've trained, guys like Tim Tebow, Jimmy Graham, D'Amico Ryans, AJ Hawk, all these, these Phillip Rivers, all these professional athletes, the buy-in is there, but our best athletes, I'm the hardest on. Whereas in the SEC, even when I coached at LSU, it's like, you tend to, the coach is almost like, don't be too hard on them because we don't want them to quit or we don't want them to transfer, because, if they're not treated like a king, they get their feelings hurt. And at our level, we get almost like Army Navy type kids, just really good kids who want to work hard, and they're pissed off that they didn't go to A&M or they didn't go to LSU or they didn't go to Mississippi State. And because we're harder on our quarterbacks, and we got, I'm hard on our kickers. We got a great kicker who's like, was up for every award this year. He's one of the best kickers in the country, and he's one of my best lifters. And, so our quarterbacks work their asses off, our best receivers. So we got 2 receivers that'll be drafted this year, one maybe even in the first round out of, Carlos Henderson. I mean, I just destroyed him every day, because he was super talented, but he was really immature. And so when you're hard you're hard on the best athletes, then it trickles all the way back down to where everybody's working their butts off. And, we do have to take a step backwards because we do get a lot of kids who have never trained before. And so we have like a freshman group, and we have to, and it's the one group that wears you out because when you coach, you're nonstop coaching, you're not talking because they can't do anything right. And it's almost like you have 2 workouts. You have that freshman sophomore workout, and then you have junior senior workout, and kind of the freshman sophomore workout is more basic, not individualized for the athlete or the position, whereas the junior senior one is more individualized for the athlete and for the person. So we do a lot of just movement work, deceleration work, mobility work, because they have, I mean, sometimes I look at him and going, God, why do we even give this guy a scholarship? He's terrible. But then, I said that about, we had an All-American DN who was number 2 in the nation in sacks. And when he came here as a freshman, I was like, this guy's never going to play. And then the next year he was a freshman All-American. Just the transition on what he accomplished in that year by just taking things really slow and getting him to move correctly and get into positions that he normally could never get into, and doing all this mobility work and strength work. Literally this guy he'd fall down with the bar, trying to overhead squat. And then he became, as a redshirt freshman, he was an All-American.
That's crazy. Crazy. You have this, Matt sent me a video. I think Flow Elite did it. I don't know. Somebody did a video on you talking about the combine, and
it's Train Heroic.
Train Heroic. That's right. That's right. Phenomenal video, man. You talked a lot of shit about the way that the combine is set up, and I believe what you say so much. I'm wondering if you could go through your gripes with the combine and kind of what you're proposing and what you're doing currently.
I spent like 20 years, in Indy, and I would sit there and watch, there, with the coaches and watching it, and I'm listening to coaches. I'm sitting there one year with Bill Parcells, and I actually went out the night before, and all night, and wasn't feeling really great the next day, and had a cup of coffee. I wasn't even paying attention. They had a section roped off. And I just walked in and sat down. I didn't realize I went and sat down with all the head coaches and the owners and the GMs. And I wasn't even supposed to be in there. But I didn't want to get up because I'm like, okay, I'm already here. I'm hungover as hell. I'm just sitting here until someone throws me out.
Nice.
So I just sat there and listened to like Jerry Jones and all these guys. And they're talking about their own combine, saying, this is pretty dumb. The only thing in their center the only thing we're getting out of this is the medical and the interviews. He goes, all this stuff on the field, it doesn't matter. Either you can play football or you can't. Run around in shorts and doesn't tell you anything about an athlete. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like in recruiting at this level, looking at someone's highlight film doesn't tell you anything about that kid. You have to look at game, total game film. And, guys get drafted and play, it's game film. It's like, you look at all the guys who are supposed to be studs and they run all these fast times but they can't play football, and so just from their point of view, they don't have a whole lot of, they don't put a whole lot of stock into it except for the interviews and the medical parts to make sure that they're completely healthy. These guys are scouted all year long. The scouts have watched this insane amount of film. And then I would talk to, I'm the guy that deals with the scouts every week during the season. So, I'm asking them all these questions and, why is linemen still running a 40? They never do it in a game. They don't typically move more than 10 yards, and they're going against another human. They're not running against air. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't, and for me, it really wasn't about the combine. It was about my programming. I said that in the, Trainer Org put a spin on it where it was more, it's me against the combine, but it was really me about what the hell we're doing as a profession.
Right.
We believe the 40-yard, we're looking at the 40-yard as the number one factor. We're looking at a 225 rep max. We're looking at a shuttle and a 3-cone drill. And to teach those two drills takes a ton of time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make you a better football player. It's a waste of time.
Right.
Drill. It's just a drill. And like when I'm training guys for the pro day, I spend a ton of time to make them mechanically efficient so they run the drill really fast. Mm-hmm. So it's so rehearsed. It doesn't tell you a whole lot, except more than anything, it tells you about their hip mobility, their ankle flexibility in movement, more than it does about a time or their change of direction. So for me, it was like, am I, and all this stuff with monitoring, with all these different monitoring systems and Australian sports scientists, all these scientists, and we have all this data. What the fuck are you doing with all this data? Mm-hmm. Using this data? What are you doing with this data? And so that's kind of what I was looking at going, okay, I want to design some drills that I can use the data so that it's, a power test where they're pushing a 300-pound sled for 5 yards. 'Cause that's all they're going to move another human, 5 yards. I want to see how fast can they move 300 pounds. I want to see how fast an athlete can sprint 10 yards and decelerate and dead stop and then reaccelerate for 10 yards. So in movement, I can see what we need to program in the weight room or what we need to do the program out on the field in our movement work, whether we need to do some weighted deceleration stuff and work so that so that eccentrically they're stronger, decelerating, and they come to a dead stop. To come to a dead stop, do we need to do more isometric work? I mean, just are we doing this just for ourselves so we can go around the country and say, oh, my guys I have 50, 400-pound benchers and
right.
I got 74-3 guys. I mean, what are we using this data for? And why are we doing it? And that was the process going through my head is why I'm giving these scouts these numbers, and I'm having to teach all this stuff that it doesn't make them better football players. It doesn't do any good for me in my program and to make them a better football player. So why am I doing this shit? And right. that was the whole thing behind it. And they did a really good job filming it and putting it together. And that was actually the first time those athletes ever did any of those drills.
Wow.
It was like we're doing it, no rehearsal. My coaches, I said, we went through it for a day to make sure we were on point. It was like quick and the athletes understood. And none of that was rehearsed. It was just me talking.
Right.
and us going through our training day to get the data that we wanted.
So and you say a little bit of this on that video right now, it's largely out of our control, right? The NFL is still using the combine to test these guys. So you have to prepare them for that.
Right.
But is there anything else that you've done? I guess what do you propose? What do you propose changes?
One, the 60-yard shuttle gives them no data whatsoever. I mean, it's like why are they running? It's more of a conditioning, like a speed conditioning test is what it is. I mean, it doesn't tell them anything. You can look, in film. Why are you doing that 60-yard shuttle when you're doing a 20-yard lateral shuttle and you're doing a 3-cone drill? You can get anything you need to look at in movement and speed-wise in those two drills. Why are you throwing this other one on at the end to where it's pretty metabolic and that fact that their legs are dead, and then they got to go do all these position drills right after. And that makes no sense whatsoever. You can get pretty much anything you need out of a 10 or 20. I mean, the game's about acceleration and deceleration. The game is not about straight line speed. Never has been. No one's going to run unimpeded. Even a receiver or a DB or on a kickoff, you're never unimpeded. There's always a human in your way that you have to redirect your body, or you're going to have to go through a body. So you can get all the information you really need in the game with a 10 and a 20. With a vertical and a broad jump. As far as a 225 bench test, kind of just tells you if the guy likes to go in the weight room or not.
Right. Right.
It. So it's, the problem too is there's too many strength coaches that lie in college, that they give all these bullshit numbers to the scouts when they come in, and our numbers are our numbers, and I tell our athletes that I give you nothing. I want realistic, true numbers so that I can do my programming off of them. Mm-hmm. And if I'm giving you, saying, oh, my quarterback squats 700, and then I talk to coach there, goes, man, that dude's never put 300 on his back, in his life. Mm-hmm. Just these insane numbers, and guys run a 4.3, then the scouts come in on pro day and a dude runs a 4.7. Mm-hmm. I think if strength coaches in college weren't giving all these bullshit numbers, you might not even have a combine. They might just go in and do medical and interviews.
Well, hopefully it changes at some point.
Yeah. Because it's for the most part, it's a wasted day.
Right. What's been the best piece of new research or like a new idea or even methodology that you've learned and implemented in the last 2 years?
Oh man, God, because man, my mind. When you ask me one question, my mind goes 360.
Yeah.
It's all going all over the place, and I'm ADD and bipolar and all these crazy issues. So my mind's so messed up. It's like my mind goes 100 miles an hour on one question, and and because I'm an incessant reader, like I said, I've read all these Navy SEALs books that that are phenomenal on culture. Man, one of the best.
What are some of those? Yeah.
What's this? It's not. God, I just finished reading it too. It's a white book. It's not Uncompromising Commitment.
It's not Extreme Ownership, is it?
Oh, Extreme. There you go. Extreme Ownership. That is a phenomenal book. I read that one last month. One of the better books on culture I just finished was Legacy, about the All Blacks.
Okay.
Phenomenal. One of the best culture books you'll ever read in your life.
Guys, all of these books that he's been mentioning and resources, we're going to post in the show notes. You can find those at brutestrengthtraining.com/podcast. Keep going, Coach.
I think I've read, a lot of it's because of the fact that I think that culture is especially at our level, if you don't have a dominating culture, you're never going to win.
Right.
But I'm writing a book right now. It's taken me forever because I am ADD, and it's hard for me to focus doing anything unless I'm training. It's skill. The acquisition of skill in football is that kind of when you think about growing up in sports, basketball players, football players, soccer players from 3 or 4 years old. They're working on skill all the way through to the college or pro level, where you're, hitting cages, you're working on ball skills, you're shooting, you're dribbling, pitching. I mean, you do a ton of skill work and you play a ton of games compared to football. I mean, you think about growing up in football and rec ball, if you're not one of the better athletes, you're not even getting on the field as a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old. So what skills are you developing? Plus the fact that at that level, every dad has his kid at quarterback or running back, and he's the coach, and they have a book thicker than the Patriots playbook, and they're all they do is run plays. They run plays. They don't learn fundamentals of football.
Right.
Then when you get to the high school level, you have just a couple of weeks in spring, and that's it. And if you're not one of the better players, how much are you getting of skill acquisition fundamentally from your coach, all the way through through college to the NFL. So you look at how much time is spent with those sports throughout an entire calendar year, and what little time that a football player spends on his skill for his position. So what we've done here is we do a ton of skill work infused into our warm up or post workout, by position. And because if I'm not making a better receiver, just lifting and getting more explosive and getting faster, yes, theoretically you're making a better athlete, but is he a better receiver?
Mm-hmm.
Can he break and separate faster than a DB or linebacker? Can he catch? We have drills where we catch over 500 balls a day, different type of bricks, tennis balls, patch on the eye, depth perception, weighted balls, hand weights on the wrist where you're catching balls, and then we contrast it where you take it off and your hands come up faster catching balls. Mm-hmm. We do reaction drills with our running backs, reaction and finding a hole, really fast. We do. I love martial arts, and I think if I wasn't a strength coach, I would probably be an MMA fighter. So we do a ton of martial arts with our receivers, so that if a DB tries to jam them, they get off them faster. With our linebackers, with our D line, with our O linemen, and we do just a lot of position skill work with each position throughout the entire year, not just in spring ball or when you go to camp. And so I think that's kind of, helped us separate ourselves in our conference, and to be able to play with Power 5 schools is that we're trying to build a better
Athlete.
player, athlete at that position, right. Not just an overall athlete.
Right.
And
what has the response and feedback been from the players on all of that work?
It's they love it. There's like, that's the funnest part of the day for them.
Right.
And for our for a strength coach, it's so out of the box compared to what you're used to doing. So it's so much. It is that needed break, that needed middle break of getting away from just the same technical cues that you use in speed and conditioning and lifting, and you're going out and doing something completely different. So even if it's after a 12-hour day and we're going to do we got an hour of skill work that you've been on the floor for 12 hours. And that extra hour, that 13th hour is the best hour of the day.
Right. I love that so much more than, you see some people, some strength coaches having their baseball players do like heavy weighted, just rotations of some sort with like a cable or something like that. Like it's going to mimic swinging a baseball bat. I think so much of that stuff is silly when just get the basics in the gym, and then you can get the more sports specific stuff, the dynamic stuff out here.
Well, especially with something that's a fine motor skill, like hitting, like pitching, like shooting a basketball. It's different with football. I mean, football is a lot of gross motor skills, but if you're like, we can't afford to drop a ball. A DB cannot afford to drop an interception, period. It changes the game for us.
Right.
At our level. A receiver on 3rd and 12 can't afford to drop the ball. So it's important that we work on those skills year round, and Paul Turner, who made the Chargers a free agent this past year, he did not drop a ball at the end. He's the only athlete that didn't drop a ball the entire preseason.
Wow.
In the NFL. And this guy's got man hand. I mean, you can throw a 30-pound brick at him and he's just match it like nobody you've ever seen. I mean, we do so much of that type of work with our receivers. And that's why the Eagles love him, is because if Wentz throws him the ball, Wentz knows he's going to catch it no matter. Right. And, and that's kind of the mentality that we have here, is to do things that other people aren't doing, with the Train Horde video, the combine type stuff, with skill work, with, I'm looking for any genre or, a modality I can find that's going to help our guys get better.
Get an edge. Yep.
Get an edge. I mean, I don't care what it is.
If you were a, 25-year-old strength coach again, you've learned, a couple of the basics. What resources would you seek out, whether it be books, seminars? What experiences would you try to have to accelerate your learning as quickly as possible?
I mean, I think you got to take a step back. A lot of guys, once they get their undergrad, they think, "Oh, I got an undergrad, I know everything." I got an undergrad degree, I can be hired as a strength coach. No, you can't. I spend so much time with my assistants and with my GAs, my interns. I mean, teaching them. We do a ton of seminar work on our own, where we do our own clinics and in-house clinics. And coming up, you have to be willing to give up a lot. And I think a lot of that's why people quit this field so quick, is that they're not. I've got my undergrad, but they don't want to go be a free intern to get the GA spot. And then they don't want to be a GA to get the assistant spot. And you have to give up. You have to give up something. I gave up a ton, to go learn from the best guys in the United States. And it's kind of like when you're recruiting, someone tells you, how do you make your athletes tougher? I go find tough athletes and we didn't come here, because you're tough or you're not. And it's the same way with either you're dedicated and you're driven to be successful, or you're not. And a lot of people aren't driven to give up stuff to get ahead, like take 2 steps back to get 4 steps forward. And it's finding quality coaches to go I think they feel like they have to go to the biggest school to get
Right.
to learn. And it's not, man. There's some great coaches at the FCS level. There's some great high school strength coaches now.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to go to Notre Dame. You don't have to go to Alabama. I mean, you can find some quality coaches that are like me. Man, if someone comes knocking on my door and willing to work, please, because we need all the help we can get here.
Right.
Especially all the free help. So it's first and foremost having that willingness and finding a quality program, and then outworking. What I tell my guys: if you're an intern, outwork the GA. If you're a GA, outwork the assistant. If you're
Amen.
the last assistant, outwork the number one assistant or outwork me, and that's how you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I just sent up one of my interns to Colorado State. I said outwork them all, and I guarantee you within a year and a half he'll probably be the number one assistant because that's what he's going to do. And it's having that drive to be better than everybody else, and that takes care of itself. I mean, there's no magic, book or training system. There's no right way. There's a lot of wrong ways, but there's really no right way. And it's understanding that, and understanding that one of my interns, he coined, once you decide to become a strength coach, you're forever dumb. You will never learn enough. And once you understand that you will never learn enough, that you're not an arrogant son of a bitch that thinks he knows everything, you'll go far.
Well, have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
I talk about this every now and then, but in any discipline, a beginner that starts to learn a little bit thinks he knows everything. And once you really start to learn, you learn how much you don't know. Right. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is that beginner that learns a little bit and thinks he knows everything. It's once we really dive in and start learning a bunch of shit, we realize how much we really don't know. And it behooves everyone in any discipline to keep that beginner's mind, right?
That's why I'm such an incessant reader, and I'm a competitor. I want to be good. I don't want to be second. I want to be number one. And I'm going to, drive myself, even though I never think of myself, I've heard like the Detroit Lions, Detroit Tigers, before they made it to the World Series a few years back, the general manager said, our first meeting, we're gonna, how he stated, he goes, we're gonna act like we're number one, but we're gonna work like we're number two.
Ooh.
Damn. And when he said that, I was like, I like that. That makes a whole lot of sense. Have that confidence that you could be number one, but have that work ethic and drive that you're not there yet, and that you're trying to get there.
Damn, that's some shit you write and put over your mirror.
Yeah,
I like that. Nice, Coach. My last question: is there anything? Or no, let me ask this. What is one thing that you wish people knew about you that they don't, or rather, what's one thing that you wish people would ask you?
I don't know. I mean, I think every time someone meets me for the first time, they're always like, "Yeah, man, I heard you're crazy, you're this and you're that." I'm like, man, am I like that much of a lunatic when I do stuff or say stuff? Because I'm not an idiot. I mean, I graduated from Tulane with pretty good education, and I've been around the place. I don't know. I mean, what do they want to know about me? I get, for me, it's that I care about more than anything that I care about my athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I care about more athletes more than I care about what I do in life. How far I go as a coach.
Right. That's a tremendous quality, Coach. This has been so valuable. I really appreciate it. Where can people find out more about you, get in contact with you, apply for a free internship, all of that?
Just khester at latech.edu, and you can just email me. And like I said, if coaches call or email me all the time, want to just talk about how do you get in this field, and mean, I had a kid from Mississippi College. He must have gave me, he gave me a questionnaire that would take like 6 lifetimes to
Yeah.
I was like, dude, just it'd be easier for you just to call me.
Right. I totally understand. Guys, just to make sure everybody understood that, that's KHESTER@LATECH.edu. Coach, again, this has been a pleasure, man. I learned a lot. It was a fun one. I appreciate it.
No problem, brother.
All right, Coach, take care.
You too.